I'd like to call the meeting of the Budget Review Committee to order. It's Monday, April 29th, 2019, at 7 p.m. We're in the Aldermanic Chamber. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman at Large Laurie Wiltshire.
Here.
Alderman at Large Michael O'Brien is present. Alderman at Large Ben Clements.
Here.
Alderman Jan Schmidt.
Here.
Alderman at Large David Tenza.
Present.
Alderwoman at Large Shoshana Kelly. Here. Chairman Richard Dowd.
Present.
Also in attendance, Mr. Chairman, is Alderman Jettie and Alderman Clay.
Okay.
Alderwoman Melissa Gold.
Oh,
I
you
just
snuck
snuck
in on me.
you. That's okay. Thank you.
And also Alderwoman Malaysia Goja.
All right. First order of business is public comment. No one. Communications?
There is none.
Unfinished business?
There is none.
New business resolutions?
Before us this evening is R-19-135, relative to the appropriation of $24,850 from Department Number 194 Contingency Account Number 70100, General Contingency, into various new accounts in Department Number 106, Administrative Services. Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to recommend final passage.
Motion is to recommend final passage of R-19-135. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, for the clerk, also in attendance tonight is Alderman Lopez.
Okay. All right, new business ordinances,
There is none.
and R-18-102 stays on the table. Alderman O'Brien.
Yes, I would like to make, Mr. Chairman, before us this evening is R-19-123, relative to the adoption of fiscal year 2020 proposed budget for the City of Nashua General, Enterprise, and Special Revenue Funds. A public hearing will be scheduled for 5/16/2019 at 7 p.m. in Nashua High School North Auditorium.
So,
And, Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to take from the table R-19-123.
motion on the floor is to take R-19-123 from the table. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, this evening, we're going to be discussing Public Works and Engineering. The revenue you'll find on page 45, 47, 45, 46, 47, 278, 289, and appropriations on 189, 201, 204, 280, and 291. Director Photo, would you like to kick it off?
Yes, please. Thank you very much, Alderman Dowd. Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to present our budget this evening. The Division of Public Works provides the leadership and framework necessary to build and maintain a safe and sustainable city infrastructure that will be utilized by many future generations of Nashua residents. We employ 169 people, and we're divided into 6 departments, all of which are represented this evening. Administration, engineering, streets, parks and recreation, solid waste, and wastewater. With me this evening is Carolyn O'Connor, our Finance and Administration Manager, Steve Dukran, our City Engineer, John Ibarra, sitting next to me, our Street Superintendent, Nick Caggiano, to my right, our Park and Rec Superintendent, Jeff LaFleur, our Solid Waste Superintendent, and David Boucher, who's way over there in Steve Bolton's seat as the wastewater superintendent. We maintain 300 miles of streets, 214 miles of sidewalks, 8,000 catch basins, 130 miles of drainage pipe, 85 traffic lights, 5,500 street lights, 300 vehicles and equipment, collection of trash, recycling, and soft yard waste at 23,000 households, a double-line landfill, recycling center, and we process 11 million gallons of wastewater per day. Just a reminder of what we do. Our proposed budget this evening is $41.3 million, roughly. That is an increase of about $4.6 million. Only $632,000 of that, however, is from the general fund. Most of that increase is from our 2 enterprise funds, wastewater and solid waste. And with that, I'm going to, with your permission, Alderman Dowd, turn it over to our first department, which will be Administration Engineering, presented by Engineer Dukran.
So as everyone speaks, please identify yourselves for the person doing the transition recording.
Mr. Chair, I'm Stephen Dukran, the city engineer. I'll be talking about the budget for engineering and administration. The engineering department does a number of projects throughout the course of the year, supported by the budget. And on the screen, the first one we want to mention is the paving program. It's a 10-year plan, $75 million. Last year, we paved 25 miles of streets. This year, we intend to pave 33 miles, and we intend to continue at this pace for the next several years. Other projects we are taking on currently would be trying to make a bicycle network throughout the city, so we have a better connection for bicycles and other types of amenities. We have a vigorous replacement of the sewer pipes because of the aging infrastructure. We want to focus our attention, or we continue to focus our attention on the bridges, looking at expanding our maintenance of the bridges. We have conducted an engineering study of Veterans and Taylor Falls bridges, the bridges we share with Hudson. We have completed design of the Canal Street Bridge repair, work that we're going to undertake this summer. In terms of significant changes to our budget, there's only one item that is of significance, and that is under salaries. We will fund a position called the GIS specialist. The budget will carry $30,000. The total line is $75,000, which we'll be sharing with wastewater. And that's it for engineering and administration.
Okay, if Director Poto, it's okay, we'll do questions by each department. So
Absolutely, that makes
questions
sense.
for engineering. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you. Mr. Dukran, I'm glad you're looking at the Veterans and Taylor Fall bridges. I'm under the belief that those are not state bridges. They were started as a national project, so the city of Nashua is responsible for some of that upkeep on that, so we should really take a look at it before and try to keep them in good shape before we need to replace them. Am I correct?
You're correct. The DOT built the bridges years ago. They are municipal bridges shared with Hudson. We conducted a study, and the study highlighted the maintenance needed within the next several years, and we're looking at trying to fund the repairs. We've applied for a grant with Federal Highway, and hopefully that comes through.
Other questions? I saw Alderman Kelly.
Thank you. I would actually, the question was around the bridges as well. You had listed expansion of maintenance. Is that because of, more wear and tear than we were expecting? What's the reasoning behind that?
So bridges actually have a long life, in the order of 60 years or so. But they need constant maintenance along the way. Cleaning of the underside of the bridges, repairing the decks, the rails as needed. And if we do have biennial, it means every 2 years, an inspection performed by the state and a report given to us, and they point out those deficiencies. And they caution us if we don't take care of those deficiencies, they just will get worse. And that's why we are focusing our attention on bridge maintenance.
Great, thank you.
Alderman Jettie.
So which are the Taylor's Falls and Veterans Bridges?
You gotta ask me that. I think the one that comes into Nashua from Hudson is the Veterans. And the other one going to Hudson is Taylor Falls.
They're right next to one another.
So these are
Alderman
the
Jettie.
two bridges that are Route 111.
Route 111.
And so what about the one in the south end of town?
That's, we call that the Sagamore Bridge. That's a state-owned bridge.
Okay.
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I waited because I have a different in the bridge. I, personal in nature, so I apologize. On one of the streets that were up for paving last year, I am a W street, so it inadvertently didn't get done. So for the people at home who didn't get done, could you brief us on how they're gonna fit into this year's paving program?
All right, so you're looking at a Z street like mine. I'm just kidding. So there were several streets that didn't get done simply because we ran out of time. And we have a plan to get back to those streets. We have the same contractor on board. We have to work out a change in that contract. But all those streets are scheduled for this year.
Other questions? I think I had Lopez and then Alderman Kelly.
I was just asking for more information on the GIS specialist. I'm assuming that that's a new budget item or you're sharing it?
Yes, maybe the director wants to talk about the changes in the GIS program.
Well, I don't know what those changes are actually going to be yet. So the GIS department will be under the new administration manager. And so there's still some discussion that's going on about how that structure will look. However, one thing that has been identified that has been badly needed was a GIS technician, or whatever we decide to call this position, in Public Works to help us with mapping a lot of our infrastructure. That was one of the deficiencies when we had an EPA audit at wastewater, that we didn't have all of the mapping done that we should in GIS, so of our sewers and everything. So we will have somebody in Public Works that will be doing all of the GIS work for us.
Alderman Lopez?
And there will be somebody, I should also say, there will also be somebody that will be servicing City Hall as well. So there'll at least be those two positions that will be.
I was wondering if the GIS technology could be used to give neighbors a better understanding of different engineering constraints within their neighborhoods. So for example, if somebody's building a fence and they don't know exactly where the right-of-way for the city is, how close to the road they could build it, if the GIS is able to map how wide the road is, then there could be some kind of guide on engineering department so that people don't build a fence that then have to move or whatever.
Yes, it actually can be used for that now. We also have a fence permit application that we have that we hope that will be required, and we hope that will help
So
residents also
people
understand.
looking to make any changes on their property could use the GIS technology and then go to the Public Works page to get more guidance on specific designs.
I would caution them on that, because sometimes right away can be confusing. So I think a better option would be to call Public Works and let us go out and let residents know exactly where the city right away is, so they
Okay.
don't make that error.
Thanks.
Alderman O'Brien, then, I had Alderman Kelly first, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'll be calling about my fence soon.
Sure.
I have no idea where the end is. So I had two questions. When you were talking about GIS, I had a follow-up on that. I was just interested in, I know we're doing a lot of sewer work now. Are we hoping to kind of get a better idea of what's underneath so that next time we do this, it'll be less cost or whatever it is because we'll have more information?
So that's a sort of a separate issue, and Dave is over there. Yeah, I'm losing you over there, Dave. We'll talk a little bit more about that. It's in our CMOM program that we're working on right now, where we'll be cameraing all our pipes so we get a better idea of the condition of all of our pipes. We know we have several that are failing in the inner city. So once we do all of that analysis, we'll be able to come up with a better plan for replacement. So yes, all of that information though will be on GIS as well.
Follow-up.
Follow up, Alderman Kelly?
Thank you. Once you have that information, will it adjust or change the pavement plan at all?
Well, right now, we're not paving. If we know a sewer is failing, we're replacing that sewer before we pave. So whether we're replacing it or lining, or we're doing a number of things. So we are looking at that now in the paving program.
Okay.
As we go.
Follow up?
Thank you. My second question before we got into GES was around the bikes. I know it's a hot issue. We hear a lot about it from constituents. So I'd love to know what we're doing in terms of that? I know it was one of your priorities.
Yes. Steve Dukran, city engineer. So last year, we formulated a plan of priority routes with the mayor's office. And this year, we've started the striping of those streets that are those designated bike routes. As we pave streets and we have to restripe, we want to make sure that there, if the street's wide enough, we want to stripe shoulders such that they can be used for bicycles. They may not necessarily be designated as bike lanes, which means if a street has parking today and you make it a designated bike lane on that street, you'll have to eliminate the parking. We don't want to go that far because that could be complicated. But we want to at least achieve a shoulder so that's a bikeable shoulder. So we look at connecting these trails and bike lanes and bike paths and shoulders, and in some cases even with if there isn't a sidewalk, maybe a shoulder can be used as a pedestrian way as well. That's the overall plan. We continue to look at it closely to see if we can get a lot of these done in an affordable nature.
Okay, Alderman O'Brien, then Alderman Tenzo.
Thank you. In touring your facility, I noticed the city's no spring chicken. We've been around here a long time. We laid the first sewer pipe, God only knows when. But it's on paper, and it's on a file. It's been moved a couple of times as you changed locations and everything. With one flood, sprinkler break, or anything else like that, from losing all that very valuable information that's in there. So with this GIS, would that be part of the upgrade to try to put this stuff into a digitized format and to get, keep the paper a little bit more secure and everything, trying to work from that as we go up into the future?
That, we are trying to do that. That's an enormous task because we do have so much paper, you're correct. And we have moved it around a bit. That's probably not as much a GIS project as it's a big scanning project. But we are trying, we do a little bit every year with our interns, that we have the work for engineering. But we are trying to accomplish that. But that's not really a GIS. It's not going to be really a function of GIS. It's more a function of
Follow-up?
administration.
Yeah, so I'm encouraged. So what I'm to take from this, you are working to that goal.
Yes.
Probably we would like to have it done tomorrow, but you got to do
Yes.
it as the budget allows. But would you again prioritize that, trying to get that all
Yes.
digitized at this particular time?
Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed.
Alderman Tenzo.
Thank you. So you've mentioned sidewalks a couple of times. I don't know if that's under your purview. Yes.
Contract.
Depends what the
sidewalk.
question
Okay.
is.
So my question is, just looking at the sidewalk contributions in a couple of the sectors of the city, it seems to be there's a large amount of money which could be used. Is there any plan to either upgrade sidewalks in the southern part of the city with that money, or is it just going to sit there for another year until we decide what we're going to do with it?
I don't know if you want to answer that.
So, Steve Dukran, city engineer. So, Alderman Tenzo, you're asking about the southern part of the city. The quadrant that has the most money is the southwest quadrant. And our immediate plan is to use some of that money for a missing section on East Dunsborough Road. We do view East Dunsborough Road as a priority sidewalk street, and we are looking beyond that missing link from where the sidewalk ends to Bicentennial School. I think we want to see if we have a complete sidewalk all the way. So we have done a survey, and we are looking at designing plans to utilize that money. That's our first priority for the southwest quadrant.
Follow-up, Alderman Tenzo.
If I could, just on sidewalk, just on the general topic. Sidewalk, snow clearance of the sidewalk. Can any of that money be used for clearing the snow when, in the winter? I know and I understand the enormous task for Public Works to try to clear the snow from the sidewalks when it snows. But every time I drive down Main Street and see folks having to, walk down either snow-covered sidewalks or ice-covered sidewalks, I get nervous for them. So can any of that money be used for snow clearance? Does it specifically have to go towards maintenance and other ways of the sidewalks?
That's a good question. I don't believe it can be used for that purpose, but I certainly could ask legal for clarification on that, on whether it could be. I don't believe so, but I'll look into that and get back to you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions, Alderman O'Brien?
Yeah. While we're on sidewalks, I was surprised to find out somewhere around 1890, the state Supreme Court ruled that we, the city, are responsible for snow removal on the sidewalks. Is that basically true? Could you just elaborate on that?
1890? Steve Dukran, I
Even have cars.
that's news to me, that we are, since back then we were responsible, but that's how we've been operating, that the city is responsible for clearing sidewalks. The street superintendent can tell you, he gives priority where priority is needed, like in the
Yeah.
school areas, the downtown, and so on.
Follow up if I may. Yeah, it's,
Alderman O'Brien?
thank you. It was some court case that somebody lost and it came down to, perhaps we should change the state law, but, I came from a community where we were responsible for your sidewalk in front of your building, but
And that's
You
pretty
also
much
represent
Massachusetts, I believe.
Alderman Clee?
Hi. Actually, I'm not sure if this is within this department or where it would fall, but I got a telephone call today from a citizen, a constituent, and in the conversation, they discussed the sinkholes that we had last year, or and
Me too.
yeah, but who's responsible for that? How does that affect your budget? Is it in the budget? If it were a water main break, would it be Pennachuck? If it's a sewer break, would it be us? And how is all that handled? Or is there an insurance company that we deal with on those things?
No,
So I don't know within that.
You do have that correct. So if there's a sinkhole in its sewer, that would be Public Works. If it's water, it would be Pennachuck. That is typically covered in our budget. Unless it was something really serious, then it would fall under risk. But typically, most of the sinkholes are repaired by Public Works within our operating budget.
And are they mostly related to the sewer, or is it just nature just takes its course of organic material dropping?
It's often related to sewer,
Okay.
yes.
So upgrading our sewer system can maybe alleviate, because it seems like the last couple of years we've had more than normal. So,
You're
so
correct.
upgrading of the sewer system will possibly help with this.
Yes,
Good, thank
yeah,
you.
absolutely.
Alderman Lopez?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Engineer Dukran. I've gotten a lot of constituent questions about, number one, clearing the sidewalks. Can you just really quickly run the sidewalk plow down this street? Or why doesn't the city clear more area in this area? And my understanding is that it also has a lot to do with the sidewalk design. If they're particularly narrow or there's a large number of utility poles, then investing in sidewalk redesign can can create a lot of benefits for snow removal. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, so indeed, some of our sidewalks are very narrow, and sometimes there are obstructions like utility poles, hydrants, what have you. So when we look at new sidewalks or repairing a sidewalk, we try to make it wider. And if there is an obstacle, we try to make it wider behind that obstacle so it can go around a pole, behind a pole, and so on. So yes, you're right. Many of the sidewalks are too narrow for plowing.
Other questions? I have a question. A couple of years ago, we received state money, I think it was state or federal money, for the sidewalk at Charlotte Avenue for safe routes to school. Nothing's ever been done with it, and I understand we have the money. When are we gonna ever attack that, or are we gonna lose the money?
Right, yes. Steve Dukran, city engineer. That Safe Routes to School project is still active. We have submitted a number of documents to the state. It's just going through one of the slow state processes. You know, I think you're familiar with the federal highway programs, when you get a grant and the different number of submissions and doing the environmental review. It started a couple years ago and it's still ongoing. And we're waiting for them to give us the go-ahead so we can get the final plans and advertise the contract.
Okay. And this sort of is engineering street related. Tonight it came down Kinsley Street. Are we done with the subterranean work on Kinsley Street? And if we are, when are we gonna start paving it?
Okay. So as you've seen, we have had gas work, water work, sewer work, and then more sewer work and more water work. And gas is trying to finish up, you know, and so the plan is for gas to get done by early June. And there is actually some sidewalk work to do. The paving of the eastern portion of Kinsley Street is being funded through a federal grant, and it requires that we make all of the tip downs, the sidewalk tip downs, ADA compliant. So that work has to be completed. And the sequence of events would be complete the remaining gas work and sewer work. The sewer work is minor, just like punches items. Get the street milled and binded first, and then the sidewalk tip downs would be repaired, and then the final paving after that. We met with the contractor last week and laid out the schedule, and as soon as the gas work is done, early June, he will get out there and start with the sidewalk and the paving. Hopefully all to be done by the middle of July.
Okay, thank you. Two other questions. The end of your budget, I noticed all your utility costs are the same as last year. Water didn't go up? None of them went up?
I will defer that to the
Chairman,
business.
the utilities have been budgeted based on historical and purchasing guidelines.
Okay, because I noticed in most of the other budgets, at least water went up. But anyway, across the board, if they're level, it's, might be tight. And the other question, I guess this is for Director Photo. Do you have a separate line item in your budget to cover the stroll? Or are you just covering that, moving everything in place by overtime?
We cover that within our operating budget, all
Okay.
departments, yes.
All right,
I mean, we
Great.
do factor that into our overtime budget, but,
Okay.
but it's in our operating budget.
all right. Any other questions for engineering? Alderman Lopez.
So when we have contractors that are working on the roads, like particularly using Kinsley Street as an example, if a contractor causes damage to, say, a water line or sewer line that might impact the residents in the immediate area, what's the process for notifying those residents that that happened, if the city's aware of it?
It may vary, but each contractor, every contractor will have an insurance certificate filed with the city. And if when we're notified, when we find out there's a problem, we first get the contractor's attention and try to see if they can deal with the resident, and maybe the insurance will pay for it. And then we continue to ask the contractor or the utility company to try and solve the problem. And often they do. They do get a point. But there are a couple of cases where there might be a disagreement as to whether that contractor did hit the utility line. And we refer to our risk management department, who will try to get the facts and try to work through the issues.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other engineering questions? Okay, next.
John Ibarra, Superintendent, Street Department. Good evening. So we have a list here on the slide to showcase some of the bigger projects we've done or what we're looking forward to doing this year. We did complete our brine making facility back in February, so we're up and running with that. The wayfinding signage, we've already started installing that around town. You'll see those going up through the season. We've compiled a list of sidewalks and prioritized for rehab, repair. And we may be doing a new one on Broad Street out of our department. We'll be replacing the fuel island at the street department. It's in need of repair down there. Long overdue. And again, we've compiled a list for our mill and fill program that we run every summer. Wherever the paving is not going on, we try and get a little more life out of the roads until they're on the paving list. As far as changes to our operating budget, building and grounds maintenance, this is for facility repairs. I bumped that $4,920. The AVL monitoring that you see now, we've incorporated to the operating budget. That was out of an escrowed fund for the last contract. Vehicle repairs and maintenance, you'll see this through the division. We're anticipating a 15% increase in parts. So we raised that line $17,750. The towing services are now included in our operating budget. That's for the snow tow. Computer software, that's for our traffic signals. That's $10,000 upgrade or increase. And those are the more significant lines. Any questions?
Any questions by members of the board? Alderman Jettie.
Why are towing services going from $0 to $30,000?
Carolyn?
Because prior to this year, the towing was not budgeted in our budget. It's now in Public Works. It really has to do with the whole transfer of parking enforcement from PD over to the parking department. So this is only for snow towing, not for just general towing services.
Follow up?
Yes, please. So is that paid for by the people whose cars are towed? Do they
Yes.
reimburse us?
Yep.
Correct.
So that should be a wash?
If we tow the right number of vehicles, yes, it would be self-sustaining.
Wait a minute.
Depends.
But I assume you wouldn't pay the $30,000 if you didn't have to tow $30,000
We
worth
were-
of cars.
It worked out good this year.
Yeah, it was relatively even, the revenue we received versus the expenses. So aside from towing, all of the police overtime and also the overtime for a scale operator to be in the scale is also included in the revenue for snow.
Further questions, members of the board, on street department? Alderwoman Alicia Goja.
No members of the committee have questions. I just was wondering if you could just very quickly summarize the wayfinding schedule for installation of signs. I know I've been asked a number of questions about when those are going up. I think people have been eagerly anticipating them and are looking forward to seeing them up. So I'm just wondering how that's being worked into all of your other responsibilities.
To that point, it's being worked into our schedule. That wasn't something we anticipated on. When we initially sat down and discussed it, we thought it would take us a year to do the installation. We're doing it weather permitting. We've already gotten into it and done the parking
Right.
trailblazers. And we're just gonna keep getting it weather permitting as we can.
The original plan was not for Public Works to
Right.
install these signs. But it turned out that the bid was very high, so we decided to do it. So we have an agreement with the Downtown Improvement Committee that we'll have them up within a year or so from this spring. So hopefully they'll all be up much sooner than that, but we're, the superintendent said, we're trying to fit it into our schedule.
Okay, may I just
Follow up.
Yes, okay, so we're looking at spring of 2020.
Correct.
They should be up, okay.
Hopefully well before then.
Okay, and again, I know this wasn't supposed to be in your shop, um, and, and I know you've heard from members of the Downtown Improvement Committee. I've actually heard from other people in the community who have said to me, that's supposed to make it easier for people to get around and certainly support economic development throughout the city.
Yes,
So hence my question.
right.
Okay, thank you.
We did meet with both Tim Cummings, the Economic Development Director, of course, and members of the Downtown Improvement Committee, and we did prioritize which signs should go up first. So we do have, and I'm sorry I don't have that off the top of my head, but we have prioritized which signs should go up first to that end to help
Okay. All right.
residents find parking.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have Alderwoman Kelly, then Alderman Lopez after.
Thank you. I know we approved that brining truck earlier in the year, and I saw it out during the storms, though minimal this year. I just wanted to know if you could give us a little bit update in terms of how successful that was. Do you look to maybe expand it in the future, just to give us a little bit of a...
So, to the expansion end of that question, every snowplow rig that we get now, we're gonna try and incorporate either a pre-wet or try and fund a liquid application tank.
Mhm.
As far as the cost-benefit analysis, we didn't get it running till February, so I don't really have any good numbers to go with. But we had positive results, and the brine production is up. So we're making about 5,000 gallons in 2 hours. And we're looking forward to getting the benefits, reducing our salt costs.
Great.
Next year, we'll have another conversation. I'll let you know.
No, winter is... Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Lopez, we have Alderman Wilshire in the queue.
I'm just wondering about the computer software. Does that include the parking software?
That's for the tactics program out of the traffic department, or traffic end of the street department.
Can you elaborate?
Well, the tactics program, to the best of my knowledge, is run out of the traffic building. He can sit there and monitor timing, control intersections, and address any issues that are arising
Okay,
using
so
that
it's
program.
timing.
So it's a software upgrade is what it is, trying to
Okay.
expand it.
And that has nothing to do with the parking apps and all that stuff?
No.
No.
Okay.
Alderman Wiltshire?
Thank you. I've noticed a couple of signs up. I mean, they looked a little different. They have a little curve on the top.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so are there a lot of signs? I mean, are
believe
there
there's
100?
87 of them,
How many?
87.
87.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, well, you get your work cut out for you.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
If it goes well, we'll have them in this season, but I don't want to sit here and promise that.
Nice, thank you.
There are many of them that require foundations, so that's more work.
Alderman Jettie?
Hopefully you won't need the brine for a while. But you mentioned mill and fill. How is that different than the paving program? Is that something you do?
So we do in-house, yeah. We have a new paver, a nice larger machine, so we're taking on some more tangible work with that. We have a grinding machine, so we can actually go out and do key cuts. Some areas we'll do overlays. Other areas we're just patching bad sections of the road. We focus primarily on the areas that are not included in engineering department's paving program. So we try and Band-Aid the road, get another 2, 3, 4 years out of that road. Hopefully it gets onto the paving list.
May I follow up?
Follow up, Alderman Jettie?
So if there's a road that has a particularly bad pothole problem,
Mhm.
and you keep repairing the potholes and they keep deteriorating, you keep getting more holes, is that something that you
We
would
would add to our
consider
mill and fill,
going
yes.
out and
Yep.
and doing the mill and fill and fixing that?
So the potholing patching is just to get us through the season, the wet and icy season. And as soon as we get nicer, steadier weather, we can actually fire up the mill and fill program and go address some of those bad areas.
Alderman O'Brien? Oh, follow up, Alderman Jettie?
Yeah, just, so if residents feel that their road is in particular dire circumstances and isn't on this paving schedule, can they call you and try to get you to
Yes,
consider
that's what we do.
milling and
And our
filling?
guys are out, solid waste guys are out. They're letting us know of areas, so we'll go and look at the area and assess it for ourselves, and then we'll prioritize and address them as we can.
Just to clarify that, Lisa Photo, Director of Public Works, we would not be, if there was a street that needed to be paved, we wouldn't necessarily use our mill and fill program there. The mill and fill program is more for areas where we're getting a lot of potholes, so we're trying to fix a specific area. We're not paving streets with that program. We're fixing problematic areas. Like you may remember a few years ago, we did Pine Hill Road, and that it's in rough shape now, and we are addressing Pine Hill Road this year, but it held up for a little while at least and got us through to where we are now. So those are the sorts of things we're looking at, not necessarily, fixing streets that need to be paved.
Okay, and could I just, one more follow-up?
Or, Alderman Jettie?
Thank you very much. So just, because a lot of people are constantly, questioning the whole paving thing, because I don't think people appreciate how long this has been going on and how long the city has been planning on repaving streets and how they determine which streets need paving. Could you just talk about there's a program where you use a consultant to determine the deterioration of various roads, and he comes up with or he or she, whoever the consultant is, comes up with a list of roads that need attention to save them, and other roads need work in the future. Could you explain that?
Sure, I'll let Engineer Dukran follow up if he wants, or maybe you want to take this one, but
Okay.
you want to
Yeah.
answer? Okay.
Steve Dukran, city engineer. We started this program, the study, back in 2015. And by 2016, we had a report. What a consultant did, they went out and evaluated the network, 300 miles of streets. And they determined through that street evaluation, and based on the conditions they observed, the different types of deteriorations you have out there, like rotting, cracking, and so on, what the pavement condition index, or the PCI, is for each street segment, and put that all together. And that's how we came up with a $75 million 10-year program that's needed to bring our average condition index to a higher number than it was back then. And so we have programmed 10 years to get this done. Every year going forward, the consultant will be doing a third of the streets, so that you have a 3-year turnaround, because within 3 years, the data for a street will be too old. So every year you do a third, and you put it back in the program, and the program now generates what the highest priorities are for street paving. And different treatments are recommended. Not a mill and fill, but a mill and overlay. The distinction is mill and fill, as done by the street department, is for a smaller area. A mill and overlay is deeper, and you do an entire length or a longer segment of a street. So they have a mill and overlay. If the street is too far gone, we do a reclamation where you go and you pulverize the whole street with the gravels and everything, and you rebuild the street. Pretty much what we'll be doing on Pine Hill Road. And the program also recommended that we do crack sealing as a maintenance item that will give some more life of the street before you get to it. And you want to crack seal streets that are still young, streets that are 5 or 6 years old before it starts going downhill. So I hope I answered the question.
Yes, thank you.
All said, Alderman Jettie? Yes. Alderman O'Brien?
I have a question down on Main Street in my forays down there occasionally. I've seen some of the damage that has unfortunately occurred. I know we're right on top of some of the granite work that has been broken by motor vehicle violations and, or accidents, I should say, not violations, but actual accidents. And I noticed in one of the light posts has a beautiful skirt that goes on the bottom of it, and I saw that unfortunately was also damaged. And I think if the taxpayer, in my opinion, the previous administrations and other boards had done a wonderful job and gave us a postcard perfect downtown, and I like to keep it up. So on these repairs, can you just briefly explain, are we right on top of it, trying to get it back and replace things like those skirts or stanchions or anything else?
So when we are made aware of an incident that's created some damage down there, those skirts, for example, we have to special order them. The process we go through is we get a copy of the PD report. We set risk to hopefully get an insured driver, and then they go after them for the monies to get back. But yes, we've been replacing them as quick as we can.
Thanks.
Okay, Alderman Clee?
Yes, hi, thank you. And I'm not quite sure who to put this one to, but when you talked about the mill and fill issue, I want to tell you that I was taking a walk with my dogs. Right on Hills Ferry Road, I saw a lot of pavement that had been picked up and put up on the sidewalk. And we had I sent it a DPW request, and I've gotten information back that they'll do, I believe it was a mill and fill on that. So I just want people to know that somebody went out, assessed it. I spoke to the homeowner there. They said, yep, someone was out there. And it was days from when I put in the DPW request. So I want you to know that that system does work, and I do appreciate it. And the feedback was immediate. The question that I have, and perhaps this is for Mr. Dukran, is the PCI scale and so on. For instance, on Summer Street, that's broken up into certain sections depending upon what the crossroads are on it. And each section seems to have a different scale. It can run from down towards like the low 50s to maybe up in the 80s and 90s. What is that scale? Is it the higher number, the better the road, and the lower number, it's sooner to get? Because each year I keep asking specifically about that, because I do have a constituent who lives on that road who's very upset about the deterioration of the road. And I do get the numbers and so on. And I was glad to hear about the every 3 years. But the problem that she seems to have is that the road seems to be failing quickly. And so I just want to know what the scale number means as to when it will be done. And can the citizens find out what their road scale is? You know, so in other words, can I get onto the DPW website, put in my street, and know what my score is or the PCI is on that? To give me an indication. I know that a 70 this year may not get necessarily, or a 30 or whatever it is, may not get necessarily right away, but just to give me an idea where my road is.
Okay. So
Sorry for so many.
That's all right.
Thank you.
So the PCI range, pavement condition index, goes from 0 to 100, 100 being street just paved. It's a brand new street, 100. 0 being, well, it's gone. You shouldn't have any zeros. So a street PCI that's, say, 75 and above with some cracks will get crack sealed. If it's, say, it's down to 50, you might get a thin overlay. I'm just picking these up, but maybe we can get you more exact information.
No, that's fine.
Something in the 20s might get a deeper mill overlay. Lower than 20, you're talking about reclamation, where you rebuild a street. Those are rough numbers. We take the recommendations from that consultant that does the evaluation. So every year, we ask them to give us a 3-year list. And the reason why we want a 3-year list is because we have to coordinate with the sewers, the water company, as well as the gas company. And if they have infrastructure needs to change out their mains and so on, then that street will have to wait. And so that's why we look 3 years down the road. So that number changes. Streets don't get better unless you do some work. They go down. And so the consultant is in possession of all the numbers. We don't have those numbers online. They publish the numbers and give them to us. I'll talk to the director. Maybe we can put them online. We don't want anyone to run away saying, I'm in a 20, come reclaim my street, because there might be other considerations. The other thing that the consultant does is that if you take a band, say a reclamation band, the lowest band, sometimes they defer the reclamation. And the whole point about this is that let us spend the money where we can preserve more streets. So if it's going to be reclaimed, whether it's at 20 or 15, it's still going to be reclaimed. So let us spend the money where the money is needed right now, and let it deteriorate that bad street for maybe a year or two, and then we'll spend the money, same money we would have spent. So that's why you can't, it's like a balancing act, but the consultant is the one that looks at it all. And
Can Lisa Fota, Director of Public Works, I just want to add to that. So, what Engineer Dukran is, I just want to reiterate that residents may see us paving streets that are better than theirs for the very reason that we can save those streets from getting to the more expensive full depth reclamation. So the other thing that I would really caution folks about looking at PCIs is that that's just one tool that we use. There are a lot of factors. If there's sewer work that needs to be done, if there's water work that needs to be done, if there's gas work that needs to be done, we may have to defer a street for those reasons because the utilities can't get to them. The other thing that often happens, we look at a third of the network every year. So a street that has a higher PCI than another may have deteriorated more. So now it may have a lower PCI. So those things PCIs tend to be moving targets a little bit. So, and then the other thing that folks need to realize is that we're only in year 2 of a 10-year plan. We have $7.5 million that we're hoping, we have only 5 years right now approved, but we're hoping to get another 5 years of $7.5 million. So we're just in the infancy stages of our paving program. So there are a lot of streets that need to be paved and that are in poor condition, and we know that, and that's why we've developed this program. And the mayor put forth the program, and the Board of Aldermen, thank you, supported that, and so we're now moving forward with it. But we're in the early stages, so there are a lot of streets that are in that really are in disrepair and need to be paved. So
Follow up, Alderman Clegg?
Yes, thank you. And I'm glad that you made those points, because those are points that I make when I have constituents call me and say, my road is deteriorating, like on Auburn Street, and they're paving a side road that was just paved a few years ago. And I try to explain that road is so far gone that letting it go one more year isn't going to harm it. But if we can save another road from getting to that point, we're
Yes.
actually saving money in the end. So I'm glad that
Correct.
you brought that point up. And my only comment about the PCI, and again, I agree with what you're saying. People are going to say, oh my goodness, I have a 20 and they're doing a 50 before my 20. But for the same reasons, that people realize that we do know that your road is in bad shape. It doesn't mean it's going to be the next on the list, but we're aware of it, just to give them more of a feeling of that it's not in their mind. And on Summer Street, that's one that's very difficult, because from here to here, it's got one grade, from here to here, it's got another grade. And the people who live on it think of it as one big, long street and not so it's nice for them just to know this and understand it. And Lauren is incredible when she gets me that information, and I can share it with my constituents. So
it's great to hear.
please let her know.
She does a great job.
I
Thank you.
appreciate her always, and I make weekly calls to her, so thank you. Thank you.
Alderman Kelly, did you have a question? Any other questions for streets? Alderman Schmidt?
Thank you. Thank you for everything you've done for me in Ward 1. Thank you, Lauren, for taking good care of us. Sharon Ave is redesigned, and people are able to walk on the side of the street because of your striping. It's safer. People feel more comfortable. Thank you for going to do Pine Hill. Pine Hill is really in bad shape.
It is.
My question on Pine Hill is that there is a culvert between the driveways, the school and the fire department. It's needed repair for some time, and I know you've come to clean it out a couple of times when it's flooded. Will you be putting a new culvert in there and raising that up a bit?
Steve Dukran, I wasn't aware that there was a need for the culvert repair, but maybe the street department or wastewater, they have identified that, the deterioration of the culvert?
I have not heard that myself. The reason we're over there and it's flooding is because of the beaver. So we're over there forever taking the debris out of the pipe. But to my knowledge, the pipe's in decent shape. It's just the beaver creating the issue over there. And there's some ongoing trapping and relocating.
Okay.
So hopefully we can stay on top of that this year.
Thank
Seemed
you.
like we were
We'll
every
look
3
into it.
days, we were over there last year.
We'll look into it
Yeah.
for you, though.
Thank you.
Other questions? Streets? Alderman Lizzie Golia.
Yes, thank you. I totally appreciate all of the work you did this year in sections of Ward 8 and attempts to address the ongoing drainage issues so that as we were paving roads, we were maybe correcting some drainage problems so the roads would last longer. And one day when it was about 105 in the shade, I was embarrassed to come down and find Mr. Dukran and his crew working in the heat, and I was like, oh, I know why they're there looking at that drain, so thank you. But there have been some driveways when they went through and put the apron in where they weren't finished maybe the way they should have been finished. And I encouraged one family to call you directly on Pinehurst. I don't know if you've been contacted by them. But if there's a problem, I'm assuming that you will work it out with the contractor who is doing that road and will look at the quality of what was done, because there's one driveway that's actually like got a couple of gouges in it, and when you look at them, and I know that road was like right down to the wire to finish it, some of the blending of the apron into the road was maybe not as finely done as it could have been.
Okay, if you give us the addresses, we'll be happy to take a look at them.
Okay.
Sure. And the best place for residents to reach us is the DPW request at nationalnh.gov. That works really great because it goes to several of us. Most likely you'll hear from Lauren Byers, but several of us see that, including the superintendent and I. So.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Other questions for streets? Okay, actually going into the budget book, which is what we're here for. Vehicle repairs and maintenance went up almost $20,000. Can you explain that a little bit?
Forecasted a 15% increase in vehicle parts this year.
Ooh. Okay. I think everything else looks pretty well level from
Yep.
the year before. So,
I did have one of those water increases that you mentioned earlier, and that was due to the brine making.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I know we've had some people where they've gone up, so they explained that they were given that direction from the corner office, so if some stay level, I just have curious as to why some are level and some are go up, you know, but anyway. Okay, next area,
Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, Mr.
he's got
Chairman.
lots of money.
Nick Caggiano, Park and Rec Superintendent. Thank you. Some of our accomplishments, we've put some rectangular fields at Charlotte Avenue. We're looking at field improvements at Jewel Lane this upcoming year. We're actually there this morning doing some test pits. Thank you, John. There will be a new playground by the end of summer at the Thornton Road Tot Lot. The equipment was purchased last year, came in the fall. We're just trying to get through our busy season, and then we'll go into a little construction mode. The resurfacing of Crown Hill Pool is occurring right now. We're about 50% done. And even with the rain that we've encountered most of April, we're still forecasted to be finished with that project by the end of May. And that pool will be up and running on time. We made some improvements over the winter in the suites at Holman Stadium with new paint, carpets, and furniture. If anyone was there for the press release a week or so ago, I thought they looked pretty good. We're also working with the street department on resurfacing the basketball courts at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Park on Lead Street, and then we'll have them repainted. Those are probably the most utilized basketball courts that we have in the city right now. Some of the other things we're working on is you're going to see a project coming forward to redo, rehabilitate the Salem and Tolles Street tot lots. We just got some concepts in for a new playground today, and the Toll Street side was approved by the Board of Public Works back in February. And next spring, there'll be at least 20 community gardens there that will work with Grow Nashwan to rent out to, at a very low cost, to people in the neighborhood so they can grow produce there. As far as our expenses, there's not a lot to talk about, but some of the things you'll notice is building and grounds maintenance went up $22,576. And you're going to hear this twice. The reason why is about a year ago, the Board of Aldermen approved a fee structure for the renting of fields. And based on those revenues, which have been coming in since last July, those revenues by ordinance are going to roll in to be used for field improvements. And so you're going to see this 1 year kind of thing to get caught up with that. Equipment rental, the next line that you see, is our portable restroom contract. They've held their price for the past 6 or 7 years. And the contract's up in December, so we're going to need to go back out to bid, and I'm projecting that we're going to finally get caught up. They've been very good to us from a price standpoint. Concerts, the summer fund program, you're going to see a $5,000 increase. And again, the same as our buildings and grounds, that legislation that you approved last spring went into effect July 1st. And so now there's a fee for all non-summer fun events for people to use the bandstand, and it will go into the summer fun account. So this is kind of our catch-up year to get caught up with that revenue. Those increases are actually going to be revenue neutral. It just has to be shown. And again, vehicle parts and supplies, you're going to see that. They've gone through the roof. Tires, I know we've had the discussion at the BPW with both superintendents, and the tire costs are just going up and up and up. You will see my water line didn't go up though, and I'm proud to say the reason why is we started installing our central irrigation systems, so we're seeing water savings through technology. So I've been able to keep it flat, and that's pretty much the major increases that you'll see in the department this year.
Questions for Park and Rec? Alderman Lopez.
First, could you set the sprinkler to not go off when I'm walking by it, coming back from karaoke every single time? Because that's really awkward. It's like 1 p.m. I'm like, what a great night that. But on a more serious note, how are the recreational sports going? Are you seeing any trends, like with regards to baseball, soccer, lacrosse?
Nick Caggiano, Parks and Rec. Yeah, we are seeing some trends. Biddy basketball actually increased a little bit over the winter. 110 teams, almost 1,600 kids play recreational basketball. It's the largest recreational basketball program in the state. Softball, Babe Ruth softball and baseball, our numbers were down. We really marketed it hard, and we've combined with other towns. We're working with Hollis and Hudson and coming up with a better team format so the kids have more competition, and we've increased both programs with more teams this year. Signups are looking good.
So soccer, lacrosse, anything going on?
Soccer and lacrosse aren't run through our department.
Oh, okay.
They're run, the Nashua Blast, we work with them. And then the soccer is run through NYSL.
Okay. And then my last question, I mean, I'm pro any kind of youth recreation because I think they need to get out there and be living healthy lifestyles. But with regards to the opposite end of the spectrum, I've had a lot of complaints about not the basketball courts themselves, but the pathways adjacent to the ones on Ledge Street. Those are in need of repair.
We know that, we identified that. It's been listed as a capital project for quite some time. And,
So this is our fault.
it's, no, it's no one's fault. It's just, there's priorities. And, we're starting with the basketball court because that gets used. And, then, maybe I can, smile a little bit and get some help on some roadways too if we get some funding.
I wasn't sure if, because you're just in the area that they could kind of.
Yeah. Well, we've
Well, you're-
identified.
You're
it.
fixing
It's-
that part,
it's-
why not go to this back
yeah,
over
It's
here?
come up past couple of years.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Wilshire, and then Alderman Tenza, then Alderman Kelly.
Thank you. What is the cost for the Crown Hill pool?
That contract right now is gonna, it's gonna be between $125,000 and $140,000. And whenever you do a contract like that, things come up, so there might be a change order. You start peeling away all that stuff and all of a sudden, oh no. So that's where I'm thinking for that part of the pool. Then there's a separate contract that we're gonna use to level the decks using some new technology where we don't have to replace the concrete, but we're gonna be injecting foam under there and it's gonna, just like insulation in a can, more high, pressure, and we're gonna level things off. And then we're looking at a roof and some interior, so we got some plans.
Thank you. And could you remind me what you said about the gardens that you were looking to put in? Where was that?
Toll Street.
Oh,
So
nice.
as you know, the Salem Toll Street lot
Tot lot?
is divided in half.
Yep.
And we partnered with Grow Nashua, Justin Monroe, and he came up with a plan. It got presented to the BPW in February, and it's a lot of the work's going to be done by volunteers. We're going to buy materials through our CDBG grant that we received, and they got some good ideas.
Very nice. Thank you so much.
Alderman Tenza?
Thank you. Mr. Caggiano, you commented on about the Biddy basketball program. My family had our first experience with it this year, and I was amazed at how well it was run from your department, and then with all the volunteer coaches who were great from everywhere. Everyone that I saw involved in it. So congratulations on that. And again, it's a point of pride. Most people who grow up in the city at some point played in the Biddy Basketball League and have fond memories of it. So it's nice that it continues to grow. You also run a number of summer camps through the city that people should be aware of, that signups are ongoing now. My question about that is if someone is not financially able to afford one of those camps, or is there a program, can they get information through your office on how they can apply for some type of scholarship?
Yes, no child is denied. We have programs, and we have some very gracious families that help us. The Jeff Moran Foundation, if a child shows needs and I just get a letter from a pastor or a guidance counselor, we'll get them through the program. Same with Biddy basketball. If they need to play and they can't afford it, we get a way to get them done.
Great. And that's not necessarily publicized in your materials, but it's important for people to know. If I may, Mr. Chairman, just a follow-up. On the revenue side, to get back to the budget, as far as Holman Stadium, there are some events that go on there throughout the summer. Is that a resource that we could be utilizing more, having more events at, and maybe generating a little bit more income to either improve Holman Stadium, improve other fields
We
in the
could.
city?
Right now, if I were to show you the schedule for the facility, I think we shared this with Alderman Melissa Goya a month or so back. It's packed. We put on over 171 events. So we have the 3 high schools, American Legion, Babe Ruth, the over 30, the over 60s men's leagues play there. Then we got the Silver Knights. They play 28 home games. And then we go into festival mode where we do the Gate City Brew Fest, which is a great event and helps PAL with the proceeds. And then the Chamber of Commerce does a food truck event. And so before you know it, it's October and we have to kind of shut down because we do have to put the field back together. I need about a month and a half to do that.
Thank you.
Alderman Kelly.
Thank you. My question's kind of related to Alderman Tenza's. I wanted to talk about porta potties. Very exciting. But I was wondering if your line item 54821 is just the semi-permanent ones, or does it include cost for events and growing crowds, et cetera?
No, it is for the permanent ones. Any event that the city produces, they can piggyback on the contract that we have, but each event is responsible for providing their own porta-johns. So the stroll, any of the Great American Downtown events, they provide their own restrooms.
So when you say provide, they actually pay for them out of their own budgets and have appropriated for them accordingly?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So the health department has a matrix of, you expect this many people, you need to have this many restrooms.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Park Rec? Alderman Clemmons.
Yeah, just a quick question. Does your budget incorporate, there was some talk about changing the sign over at Holman Stadium, putting a new marquee. Does this budget include that, or?
This does not include that. As you know, the team was sold.
Yep.
With the old ownership, we were pretty close to doing another 2-year deal with them where they would pay for 2 years up front, just like we did with the scoreboard. And we were going to be able to fund an electronic sign out on Holman, out on Amherst Street. With the change in ownership, they weren't really prepared to do that, but we are going to talk about it for next season.
Okay, great, thank you.
All set? Any other questions for, Alderman Clee?
Thank you. It's not so much a question, but just a thank you from Ward 3, the Salem Street Tot Lot and the tolls and the gardens and so on.
Thank you.
Because it is something that's been a bit of an eyesore. I'm sure that when it was put in, it was but it kind of depleted. I would like, and I know they really don't go anywhere, but one of the things about the park that I notice more than anything is dog waste. If we could put up something that, people will pick it up and put it somewhere. I've seen in other areas, not necessarily in the city of Nashua, but where they actually put up the poop bag, so to speak. I know that's a cost to it, and it's also a hassle to have to go in there and fill those up, but I really would. It was unbelievable when I walked through there last year. It was. It makes it difficult for people to want to bring their children there. And as a dog owner, I'm very upset by it. So, thank you.
All set?
Thank
You
you.
got enough money in your deferred maintenance to fill some of those special access animal entrances in your garage?
The little poop fairy signs up.
Okay. Next department?
Solid waste.
Jeff LaFleur. Solid Waste Department's the landfill's actually going under a huge expansion right now for our Phase 3 landfill. We've been doing a lot of improved gas collection to reduce the odors at the landfill. And we're also permitting our Phase 4. We're working on getting that approval through DES. Some of my biggest changes is my salaries for my licensed scale operator. I'm hiring a part-time scale operator to help alleviate some of the issues at the landfill with all the traffic coming through and helping the full-time scale operator from pulling his hair out over there. We could see up to 300 cars an hour in the landfill. It's a busy place, so this will help keep that in check. As you can see, I have a lot of increases. Aerial imagery, the 15,000, that's my portion of that. Other professional services, that's my USDA bird contract. Every year we go up just a little bit. That's the normal increases. Buildings and grounds and maintenance, $15,000 increase. That's a line item for our gas field supplies. We're putting in a lot more gas expansion, as I said, and we do a lot of our own well repairs and everything. So we're putting some money in there for new wells and new lines. Equipment repairs and maintenance, $20,000. That's for my closed landfills. All our blowers there have been running for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 12, 13 years. We do minor maintenance to it, but we're expecting some kind of a failure eventually here, so we want to be proactive before that happens and keep our closed landfills operating properly. AVL monitoring service, that's my contribution for that. All of our vehicles have GPS in them now, so I can tell where each vehicle is at any given minute. Vehicle repairs and maintenance, as stated before, that's the 15% increase. I have all my vehicles at the landfill are CNG vehicles. Those are all coming up for, or most of them are coming up for CNG tank inspections. That's a pricey thing. That's a specialized situation where only certain people can do that, and we have to pay to have that done. And a big chunk of that will also be the wheels for the compactor. I ended up getting 2 sets of teeth for free this year, which was over a $35,000 price. I negotiated with Caring Compactor, so I got the first 2 for free, and this is going to be the second 2 that I'm going to have to pay for. Licenses and permit fees, $25,000. That's my Title V air permit for the landfill. This is a standard, a flat rate that the state just assessed every landfill in the state of New Hampshire. That's a flat fee. We contested that. We didn't get anywhere with it. I have to pay it. That's the increase. Other contracted services, I have that raised up a little bit for brush and demo grinding. We're going to start grinding again. I haven't done the grinding in about 4 or 5 years, and now's the time to do it. I have a pretty good pile growing over there, and I want to use that. I can use that for cover up in the landfill for the mud saturation. We can soak up some of the mud, and we can have some good traction up there. Tires, that's another increase that was anticipated through my fleet manager, as everyone else has already spoken to. Debt service principal, that's a normal increase that we always have every year towards our debt service. Our interest, same thing. My transfer to closure cost, $70,000. That's our engineered cost that was reflected towards closing our landfills. So the good thing about the transfer to closure cost is once the Phase 3 landfill opens up, that pushes this cost out, so that cost will drop a little bit for a while. Those are my major changes. If there's any questions?
Questions? Alderwoman Kelly.
Thank you. My question was around recycling and where we are with that. I know we've talked about it a lot, but it does come up, and constituents are interested in.
Absolutely. The recycling markets are still very bleak. We've been going up, going down. It's bouncing all over the place. We're staying right around that $90 a ton mark, which is very expensive, as everyone knows. We're still trying to see where we're going. I mean, no one in the markets has the big crystal ball what's going to happen. The good thing is, I mean, it's going up and down, but it's very small increments. It goes up a couple dollars a month. It goes down $3 or $4 a month. So it's fluctuating, but it's staying pretty stagnant right now.
And just a follow-up. I just didn't see the line item on here. Is it under something specific?
That would be underneath my other contracted services, where you see the $1,070,000 line.
Okay. And you do have the, if I could follow up, sorry. You say you sell the sales at around the same as last year. I assume that's just kind of
Yes.
going with what's going on.
Yeah, just anticipating what.
Okay.
Other questions for solid waste? Alderman Clee?
Yeah, I have a question for you, and this may be a capital expenditure, but when Director Photo took me around to all of the different public works areas, one of the things that your buildings at the landfill with critters and various other creatures trying to invade your space and just the space in general, is that budgeted at all to try to make that better, or?
I'm glad you asked that question.
I know, I was
Thank
appalled
God.
by it, yeah.
So, yeah, all of our public works facilities and some of the Alderman Willis, Alderman Dunn, Alderman O'Brien were kind enough to take a tour of our facilities, and I think we're surprised by what we found. Our employees, not only at solid waste, but with the exception of wastewater, are all working in some pretty horrible conditions, and we're hoping to make some changes there. So there, we have formed a committee and that is made up of two Public Works Commissioners, Commissioner Tees and Commissioner Moriarty, and Alderman Wilshire, Alderman Dowd, and Alderman O'Brien have graciously agreed to sit on that committee. So we are hoping to have a meeting coming up soon and sort of determining what next step should be to try to solve some of these problems, so.
Just
So
kind of a
we're very early in the, I guess, in the
Just
stage.
a
but-
follow-up comment. The employees all there, when we talked about the critters that were there, were still in good spirits and everything, and my hat's off to them, so.
Thank you.
Yes, to say I was surprised is an understatement at some of the conditions that our employees work in. I was taken aback. Yeah, yeah.
Other questions? Solid waste? Yes, that was very eye-opening and a large solution to the problem because it's not one building, it's several buildings in several bad conditions and long overdue. So there's a lot to discuss and a lot moving forward. And a lot of things for the committee to do and lay out the groundwork for going forward. Okay, next department.
Wastewater.
Thank you. David Goucher, the wastewater superintendent. As mentioned on the screen, the wastewater plant is running very well. We do face tougher and tougher regulations from the EPA and the state. So it requires making adjustments to processes. The following is a list of current projects we have going on. One of them is upgrading and redesigning our pump stations. We have 13 throughout the city that are in need of upgrades. The Energy Recovery Facility is a facility within the wastewater facility. It's designed to utilize the biogas from the digester complex. This helps us generate power on site. The primary tank upgrade is one of our process tanks. It has a lot of mechanisms inside the tank itself that needs upgrades, along with the computer monitoring system, the SCADA system that goes along with it. The wet weather facility, which is also at the wastewater facility, is in need of upgrades throughout the entire facility. And the CMOM, which Director Photo mentioned earlier, it's a EPA mandated collection systems and maintenance program. This is something we're actively working on now, which also entails gathering and asset management of the entire collection system, so we can determine which sections to replace first, which goes along with the paving project. Part of the budget is the salary, some changes with the salary. Part of it is the GIS specialist. It's the wastewater's contribution to this position. Wastewater utilizes a lot of the GIS for mapping the collection system, along with the manholes and the catch basins. So the collection systems operator, currently we have 3 collection systems operator. These are the guys that go out and maintain the system, flush the sewer lines, and suck up the catch basins. We do have another vehicle we're adding to the fleet as part of the CMOM program, which is going to require another 2 people, so we're looking to increase staffing there. Also, the environmental permits program coordinator, as we have to fulfill different programs within the city, managing the stormwater, managing the CMOM program, and the industrial pretreatment program. This position will do that, be the person that oversees those, and replaces the current pretreatment coordinator that we had at the wastewater facility. And then the other expenses we have at the wastewater facility where we see increases, we have the BPW pension services increase a little over 12,000.
Dave,
Yep.
that sorry to interrupt you, but that actually was an error, and that was taken off the slide. It's
Oh,
just
I'm
not off
sorry.
your copy, apparently, so sorry.
Forget I said that.
The BPW pension services are going to be entirely funded through the pension, not through the operating budget, just so you're aware.
Well, I think everything else is the same though. Okay.
Yes, everything else is the same.
So building and mailing services, I have an increase of 20,000. That's an increase in postage. The aerial imagery also goes with the GIS flyover. Buildings and ground maintenance have an increase of 5,000. This is based on historical trending of what we've been spending out at the wastewater facility. Equipment repairs and maintenance, 90,000. This is for a lot of repairs in the wet weather facility. Along with a lot of our outbuildings, there's a lot of buildings at the wastewater facility that require heat, so we need a lot of upgrades to the heating systems in these out facilities. Other contracted services, this is a larger increase, 119,000. We have a lot of additional flow meters that are going into the collection system to monitor the flow. We do have a lot of rainwater flow, catch basin flows that we're trying to determine where it's coming from. We don't have a history of how much water comes through the interceptors, so we're gonna put in additional meters. Also, service contracts for a lot of the equipment we have requires special services to maintain the equipment. Special equipment to do preventive maintenance to the equipment that we have at the wastewater plant, which my crew does not currently possess. The chemicals increased 119,000. That is another increase based off of the consortium prices that we get from the Massachusetts. We do utilize a lot of chemicals, plus we have additional chemicals that we're going to be utilizing in the wet weather facility, also under this line. Miscellaneous supplies, 52,000. This is also based off of historical trending. Equipment increases, 15,000. We do plan on putting some additional pumps at the facility where there currently aren't pumps to help move processed waters from one location to the other. The other portion is the debt services and principals and interest, which is calculated through Finance Department to help pay for projects. And the debt service issuance costs also, it's calculated by Finance. Any
for
questions?
wastewater? Alderwoman Kelly.
Not a question, just a comment. We see you a lot coming in and talking about the improvements, and I appreciate your diligence in coming in and making sure that those upgrades are happening. So, and always being patient, especially with us new aldermen who have no idea what it is that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay. Any,
Going to add, excuse me, if any of you are interested, we're happy to give a tour of the wastewater treatment plant. We're very proud of it and love to give tours, so let us know if you want a tour.
you want to bring an umbrella, because I got birds flying around inside.
Oh, yeah.
No, we don't.
Good to know.
Any other questions in general? Alderman Clemmons.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for coming this evening. You're all consummate professionals. You do a great job. You run a stellar department, and you all do great in your different divisions. I have no problem supporting this budget and the increases that are here. I think they're all well deserved, and not only that, but needed. And if anything, they probably fall short of where we actually should be. So, but it is what it is. So, thank you for doing all that you do with the constraints that you have.
Thank you.
Yeah, I too concur. Do a great job in the city, and I'm sure you'll have far less complaints as soon as we catch up on the streets now that we've approved the money.
Yes.
I think that's the only thing I hear complaints about, but I think even after the summer, we'll be well ahead of where we are. So, thank you. All right, thank you for coming in.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the evening. Alderman O'Brien.
I will, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to table R 19-123.
All right, the motion on the floor is to table R 19-123, which is the budget, till the next budget meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. General discussion. Anyone that hasn't had an opportunity to tour their facilities and see the condition ought to do that. It's an amazing tour. It'll open your eyes. Okay, public comment. There's no one here from the public. Remarks by Alderman? Seeing none. We have no need for a non-public. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Alderman Wiltshire to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned at 8:30.